Hello, YouTubers. Joe Cruiser here on Sunday, September 15th, a little after 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time. Now, I went to uh, early church this morning, 8 o'clock, and our transitional deacon preached. And she did a very good job. She's preached now, I think, about 4 times since she's been here, maybe 5 actually, and done a very reasonable job each time. Excuse me. Today's gospel revolved around the 2 episodes in Luke 15 in which the Pharisees are griping about Jesus eating with not taxpayers, tax collectors and other sinners. And, in reply to that challenge, he tells them three parables, but the 2 today were the parable of the lost sheep and the parable of the lost coin. And the one that follows is the parable of the prodigal son, which is given a separate Sunday. Now, Roseanne made a very she referred back to the original Greek, which of course that immediately wins my heart and mind. And I wasn't quite familiar with, I was familiar with one of the points she was making. The word metanoia, that's often translated as repentance. But I wasn't familiar with the Greek words that are often translated in English as receives, as in receive sinners, or finds, as in finding the coin, finding the lost sheep. And it turns out that to really get to the subtleties of this story, which on the surface actually aren't, it's not that hard to figure it out on the surface just by however it's translated. But the subtleties come in the original language, and as is so often the case. And I'm going to start with finds. Now you find the lost sheep, find the lost coin. Shepherd finds the lost sheep. Woman sweeping her house finds the lost coin. In both cases, you have an active agent, seeking to find something that is lost. And the Greek root for that is huri, which in English is cognate with heuristic, which heuristic in English means aiding or guiding in discovery as an educational technique. So here's an active agent, the finder, aiding or guiding, an entity that is lost to be found, or to, if you're in a teaching setting, gain knowledge, that sort of thing. So the question then becomes, then you have to sort of jump ahead in the story to, who's the finder in the opening scene with the Pharisees saying he receives sinners? Well, Jesus is the finder, of course. He's found these lost souls and he's ministering to them. But before he ministers to them, before they really, figure out what he's bringing them, he receives them. And the Greek word for that is prostogetai. and and it's very conventionally translated receives. The the Tyndale New Testament, which by the way, I urge everybody to look into the Tyndale New Testament. And the AV, Authorized Version, sometimes called the King James Version, but more properly called the Authorized Version, translates prostegeti as receives. But interestingly, the NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version, translates it as welcomes, which is perhaps getting a little closer to the Greek, the translations offered in my one Greek dictionary. That it says yes, it can mean receives, sure, but it also says it can mean to accept with endurance or to suffer. Not suffer doesn't mean tolerate. It just means putting up with the situation for a while in hopes that in patience and hope that it will change. And so what is aiming? What is the change that's being aimed for? Well, forgiveness on the part of the person who is receiving them, and repentance on the part of the sinner. Now, the word for repentance is metanoia, and that meta means change, something different. It's got other meanings too, but in this case, that's what it means. And noia is a root. It's a Greek root. Nous. It means knowledge. Has to do with mind, thought. I mean, the highest level of intellect. Nous. And so it really means a change of mind. The Authorized Version and Tyndale and the NRSV all translate that as repentance. But the Geneva Bible of 1560 translates it as has converteth. And the converteth captures, I think, the change of mind better than just what we think of as repentance. I think we tend to think of repentance as behavior, primarily behavior. Don't do that. But it really means a complete change of mind, and it means don't think that. In other words, the way the communists tried to brainwash people and the re-education centers, they really wanted them to, think. They wanted them to think like they thought. It's like a fellow that escaped communist Czechoslovakia told me. He said, now he had worked under the Nazis and he had worked under the commies. And he said the Nazis were far easier to deal with because all they wanted you to do was just do what they told you. But the commies wanted you to actually think. They wanted you to think like they wanted you to think. He says that was a lot harder to deal with. So metanoia implies a complete change of how this former sinner, well, we're all going to stay sinners anyway, but has tried to amend his life. So when you go back to the original language, the meaning of these very straightforwardly obvious terms becomes far more subtle and rich and complex and layered. And the finder is as much of an active agent in the act of repentance as the repenter is, or this, the former sinner is. Well, we're all staying sinners, but you understand what I'm saying. So this one almost throwaway line in this really fine sermon led me to scamper home and engage in this little exercise, which I hope some of you guys have found interesting at any rate. So I'm going to say bye-bye now, YouTubers.